Hey guys, thanks for coming back to Psychotalk. In August of 1971, a group of ordinary college students walked into a basement at Stanford University. Within 6 days, some of them had become monsters. Others had suffered complete psychological breakdowns. And the man who designed it all just watched. Think about that for a second. These weren't criminals. They weren't soldiers. They weren't psychopaths. They were young men just like you. Just like the people you know. They were screened for mental stability. They were deemed normal. And in less than a week, they proved that normal means absolutely nothing when you put someone in the right situation. So here's the question that should keep you up tonight. If they could become sadistic torturers in 6 days, what makes you think you're any different? Let that sink in. The first dark mechanism we need to understand is something psychologists call de-individuation. It's the process by which you stop being you. When those students arrived at the basement, they weren't called by their names anymore. The prisoners received numbers. The guards received uniforms, mirrored sunglasses, and wooden batons. And something in their brains shifted. Consider what happened to guard Dave Eshelman. He was a normal college kid from a middle-class family. He liked music. He had friends. By day 2 of the experiment, he had invented a character he called John Wayne. He would pace the halls at night screaming at prisoners, forcing them to do push-ups until they collapsed, making them repeat degrading phrases for hours. He later admitted he was improvising. Nobody told him to do these things. He created new tortures because he enjoyed it. Here's the neuroscience that explains why. When you remove personal identity markers, when you give someone a uniform and a role, the prefrontal cortex activity decreases. That's the part of your brain responsible for moral reasoning, for impulse control, for asking yourself, should I really do this? Meanwhile, the limbic system, your emotional, reactive brain, takes over completely. You stop thinking about consequences. You stop seeing victims as individuals. You become the role. This is exactly why soldiers throughout history have worn uniforms, why executioners wore hoods, why online trolls hide behind anonymous usernames. Remove the identity, and you remove the conscience. This could happen to you. Put on a uniform, join a group, accept a title, and watch how quickly you forget who you used to be. The second mechanism is even darker. It's called the Lucifer effect, and it explains how good people don't just do bad things, they convince themselves those bad things are righteous. Prisoner 8612 was a young man named Douglas Corpy. On day 2, he began screaming uncontrollably. He begged to be released. He told the researchers he was losing his mind. And here's what should disturb you. Philip Zimbardo, the lead researcher, the man who designed this entire experiment, looked at this young man having a psychological breakdown and thought, this is great data. He had become so absorbed in his role as prison superintendent that he forgot he was a psychologist. He forgot these were students. He forgot he had an ethical obligation to protect them. The guards didn't just tolerate the suffering, they escalated it. They woke prisoners at 2 a.m. for counts. They forced them to clean toilets with their bare hands. They put prisoners in solitary confinement, a dark closet they called the hole, for hours at a time. Here's the counterintuitive truth that makes this terrifying. The guards who were most cruel reported feeling the most justified. Cognitive dissonance forced their brains to rationalize the behavior. If I'm doing this, there must be a reason. The prisoners must deserve it. Your brain will literally rewrite your morality to match your actions. You don't do bad things because you're bad. You become bad because you've done bad things and need to justify them.
This is why abusers always have explanations. Why corrupt cops believe they're heroes. Why authoritarian regimes convince ordinary citizens to inform on their neighbors. The role creates the justification, not the other way around. Now we arrive at the darkest mechanism of all, and I need you to pay very close attention here. It's called learned helplessness, and it's what happened to the prisoners who didn't break down, the ones who stayed, the ones who adapted. Prisoner 416 was a late replacement named Clay Ramsey. He arrived on day 4, after the experiment's culture had already been established. He immediately recognized something was deeply wrong. He went on a hunger strike in protest. And here's where it gets disturbing. The other prisoners turned against him. They called him a troublemaker. They told him to fall in line. They had been so thoroughly broken that they began enforcing their own captivity. The guards gave prisoners a choice. They could have 416 released from solitary confinement if they gave up their blankets for the night. Not a single prisoner agreed. They chose to let a fellow human being suffer in a dark closet to keep their blankets. These were the same young men who, 5 days earlier, had been strangers with no reason to hate each other. The system had turned them into collaborators in their own oppression. This is how psychological prisons work in real life. Abusive relationships, cult dynamics, toxic workplaces. The victims don't just endure the abuse, they begin participating in it. They police each other. They attack anyone who challenges the system. Because if they admitted the system was wrong, they'd have to admit that everything they suffered was meaningless. Now, here's the hidden truth that completely reframes everything I just told you. The Stanford prison experiment may have been fundamentally compromised from the very beginning. Think about that for a second. In 2018, researcher Ben Blum uncovered audio recordings and documents that revealed something shocking. The guards weren't just naturally becoming sadistic. They were being coached. Zimbardo and his research team gave explicit instructions to be tough. They encouraged specific cruel behaviors. When guards showed reluctance, they were pushed to be harsher. David Jaffe, one of Zimbardo's assistants, directly told guards to be tough and intervened when they weren't cruel enough. The famous John Wayne guard later admitted he was partly performing, playing a character he thought the researchers wanted to see. And remember Douglas Corpy, the prisoner who had the breakdown? In later interviews, he admitted he faked much of his distress because he wanted to leave and study for exams. He was acting. So what does this mean? Does it mean situational power isn't real? Does it mean humans aren't capable of becoming monsters? No. It means something far more disturbing. It means you don't even need extreme situations to bring out cruelty. You just need permission, a small push, an authority figure nodding approval, a sense that someone else is responsible. Let that sink in. The real Stanford prison experiment wasn't about prisons. It was about how easily humans surrender their moral agency when someone in charge tells them it's okay. Let's go deep into what's actually happening in the brain during these transformations. When humans are placed in hierarchical systems with clear authority, two critical neurological changes occur. First, the brain's agency network, located primarily in the angular gyrus and temporoparietal junction, shows decreased activation. You literally stop feeling like you're the one making decisions. Brain scans of people following orders show reduced activity in areas associated with personal responsibility. Second, and this is crucial, the anterior insula, which processes empathy and moral emotions, becomes suppressed when you perceive yourself as just following instructions. This is called the agentic state, and it's why ordinary soldiers commit war crimes, why employees at Enron destroyed lives for quarterly bonuses, why prison guards at Abu Ghraib took smiling photos with tortured prisoners. Your brain has a built-in mechanism for outsourcing your conscience to authority figures. Evolution gave us this feature because following group leaders helped us survive. But in modern systems of power, it makes us capable of unimaginable cruelty. The victims experience something equally devastating. Chronic stress from powerlessness floods the brain with cortisol, literally shrinking the hippocampus, the region responsible for memory and emotional regulation. Long-term exposure to arbitrary authority creates lasting psychological damage that resembles PTSD. Now, I need to speak directly to you, because what happened in that Stanford basement in 1971 is happening right now, in offices, in relationships, in families, in online communities. Here are 3 warning signs that you're inside a psychological prison. First, you've stopped questioning rules that make no sense. When you find yourself enforcing arbitrary policies simply because that's how it's done, you've surrendered your moral agency to a system. Second, you feel like you can't leave, even when nothing is physically stopping you. This is learned helplessness. The cage door is open, but your brain has convinced you it's locked. Third, and this is the most important one, you've started to believe that people who challenge the system are the real problem. When you attack whistleblowers, when you dismiss complaints, when you tell victims to just follow the rules, you've become a guard. You don't need a uniform. You don't need a basement. You don't need an experiment. All you need is a system that rewards obedience and punishes questions. Look around your life right now. Your workplace, your relationships, your social circles. Ask yourself honestly, are you a prisoner who's forgotten the door is unlocked? Or worse, have you become a guard? The Stanford prison experiment wasn't about what happens in extraordinary circumstances. It was a mirror held up to ordinary life. The darkness it revealed isn't locked in a basement somewhere. It's in all of us, waiting for the right situation, the right uniform, the right permission. And now that you know, you're responsible for what you do with that knowledge. Thanks for staying till the end. Please like and subscribe.